All right, good evening, everybody. How you doing tonight? It's Caesar with El Guapo Comics here. And on last night's stream, when I was doing the pencils for this live, I mentioned that I had some uh, drawing magazines, specifically comics drawing magazines from many years ago. And so I said maybe make a series of these magazines that came out. I also have some called Masters series, which talks about individual comic artists and that sort of thing. And I thought it just might be interesting to maybe do a video here and see what you all think. And so I have the comics that are drawing magazines. I'm sorry, the magazines that are drawing magazines are Draw and Rough Stuff, and then there was another one that for whatever reason is escaping me right now. So I want to start with Draw magazine. Now this one here is dated from this is number 9, all right, and it came out in the fall of 2004. So what are we talking here? 20 years ago on this issue. And on the cover here, we see the art of Mike Manley. Mike Manley is a professional comics artist. He's been in the business for, gosh, what's it, 30 plus years or so, maybe more actually. He has a YouTube channel with other cartoonists that is currently on YouTube. It's called Pencil to Pencil, and I'll probably throw a link in the description of this video so that you can maybe go there and check out that channel. They have some good interviews with many different cartoonists, and they talk about art and the craft and this sort of thing. I think it's like a panel of 3 of them. So I just want to give them a shout out, and as us artists and creatives that cartoonists that are making comics, whether we're doing it professionally, semi-professionally, or as a hobbyist, or maybe even aspiring to be professional cartoonists and artists. So I think it's a good resource to get as many of these things before our eyes as possible. So yeah, so I'll definitely put a link onto that. Now in this issue, as you can see, all right, it's Draw magazine. It's a professional how-to magazine on comics, cartooning, and animation. And this issue is a pretty neat issue because it gives a step-by-step on how to create a comic from script to print by Mike Manley. All right, and then it gives the specifics. It says, see the process from pencils, inks, and colorings to lettering, printing, and distribution. Now, I want to keep in mind that this is 20 years old. So although it has digital as part of it, we're talking, what, 20 years ago. And so digital comics programs and that sort of thing have evolved tremendously in the last 20 years. And so they're going to be mentioning some things in context, and some of you, more techie people out there, more techie artists, will probably get a good kick out of some of these things that they talk about. It's so advanced and that sort of thing. But I think it's just neat to see overall. We also have some articles here. The illustrated tutorials by Alberto Ruiz. Scott Kurtz does an article in here about cartooning and expressions. There's another article about Tom Bancroft and Robert Corley. Product reviews. There's Brett Blevins. I don't know if that means anything to you, but Brett Blevins is also a comic artist, and I believe he's mostly an inker, if I'm not mistaken. But he does an article here on Noel Sickles, the father of realistic cartooning, so which I think is pretty neat. And so at the time, if you look right down here in the corner, you're going to see where it says crossover with Right Now. So Draw magazine had Draw magazine, okay, and then along with it they had what's called Right Now, and in this they talked about the craft of writing comics. So it's pretty neat. If you find these. I don't know where you're going to find these, honestly, but maybe you might be able to find them out there. If you look at the cost here, it's $5.95 back in 2004. And I'd be hard pressed to even, this is pretty thick, so there's a lot to it. It's got a lot of instruction. There was no way you'd be able to pick this up for $5.95 now. It'd probably be more like I want to maybe twice the cost, maybe like $9.95, $11.95, something like that. So yeah, without further ado, I'm just going to open it. We're just kind of going to flip through it page by page. So we'll look here. There's someone advertising that they're looking for original art. They're looking for Neil Adams, Art Allen, John Buscema, Rich Buckler art, Ernie Chan, Dave Cockrum art. And they said finder's fee paid for information leading to the purchase of any of these 6 covers. So they were looking for these specifically. So it's definitely a huge speculation market. They were probably looking at these and saying, hey, these are going to be key issues. We want the art. There's going to be key art. And so they were looking for that. So once again, fall of 2004, volume 1, issue number 9. And the editor-in-chief of this was Michael Manley, and publisher was John Morrow. And I think they had a series of books they had a company called Two Morrows Publishing, if I'm not mistaken, and they would put out these graphic novels and these oversized books that collected different works and that sort of thing. I believe it was called Two Morrows Publishing, if I'm not mistaken. Logo design by John Costanza. So if you know anything about classic letters, John Costanza was a big name back in the day as an awesome hand letterer. And look, you could subscribe to Draw Magazine, 4 quarterly issues for $20 or $32 first class mail. That's a bargain. That if you think about it, so it's $20, right? For 4 quarterly issues, it's $5. So that's, you save 95 cents on this cover price. Canada was $40 because everything's more expensive. And then look at this. You can even $45 for surface and $60 airmail. So you can get this ship maybe cross country, transatlantic even. And it looks here located in Two Morrows, right? As I mentioned, Two Morrows Publishing in Raleigh, North Carolina. All right. Wonder if this email is still active. twomorrows@aol.com. All right. So we're going to look at the first article here, and we see here rather from the editor, okay, Mike Manley. So and he states here that this issue of Draw and the crossover with our sister magazine Right Now was more than a year in planning. So they had actually planned this out with some forethought, and I think they even put out a DVD for this, if I'm not mistaken. The Right Now team, I think, yeah, it says it right here, editor and old Dark Horse writer Danny Fingeroth and myself. So Danny Fingeroth was the editor of Right Now, and Mike Manley was the editor of Draw Magazine. And they were doing this crossover. So anyway, that's just a blurb there kind of talking about, you know, what they were doing. So they were combining this with a DVD that was for sale as well. So I'd like to have that DVD. I bet you it's interesting. All right. Obviously, you could advertise with them. They had their rates here. But let's look at this very first page here. So this is basically the tutorial that Mike Manley put together. So I want to show you this this cover here. This is a tight pencil layout. It's pretty tight. Really nice cover here by Mike. There's a lot going on. I think here it is. Yeah. So this was Thief of Time, written by Danny and illustrated by Danny Fingeroth and illustrated by Mike Manley. So he did the pencils here. Beautiful work. I mean, it really is just top-notch cartooning. He really is a talented cartoonist, no doubt. So right down here it says, above, this was the original pencil version of the cover to The Thief of Time. In the beginning, I was thinking of this as being maybe a comic in a slightly more humorous vein. I later repenciled the figure of Heather Brascom after Danny Fingeroth, my co-creator, defined the character and the feel of this series more. And we decided against a humorous or more cartoony feel in favor of a more straightforward adventure. So on the right here is the initial quick sketches or drawings of the character. So I'll try to pull this up a little so you can see it. All right. So these are the original layouts of what he had done. Okay. And then this is the final pencil version here. And it looks like he had done it on traditional 11 by 17 board. Very tight pencils, very professional, very nice, very clean. As a person that, as an artist myself and an inker, I started off doing comics as an inker. This is exactly what I want. So there's enough information here so that I'm able to ink it with the intention that the artist has, but there's also enough room in there for interpretation. So I would really love to ink a page like this, and maybe I will someday. Basically talks about, creating comics. Mike over here saying creating a drama, be it a movie or comics, is probably that all paths you're going to walk dramatically have been walked by someone before. So all you can do is try to put a little spin on the ball. And there's been a zillion stories about pirates and private eyes of guys flying through outer space, starship captains, and superheroes. Nothing is really going to end up being completely unique. I mean, you hope your idea is fresh, but in genre fiction, most ideas have probably been tried now. True. So for those of you that are saying, oh, I have an idea for a comic, oh, but it's been done before, I think the point that Mike is trying to make here is that don't worry about it being a unique idea. All right, it's not so much the original idea or the idea, but it's the execution of the idea. Because honestly, all right, stories, heroic stories, tragedies, comedies, all this stuff, there has been, these stories have been told in one way or another, in different mediums and in different ways for centuries, for thousands of years. So you're not really creating anything new. But are you going to be able to create something that is at least interesting? All right. And then we see Danny makes a comment here. That's right. We had some discussion about time travel and how and transfer over stories that can be incredibly complicated. And the question always comes back: if you can travel through time, why not just keep going back in time until you get it right? Okay. So, and he mentions Groundhog Day. So he ties that in with something that we know. Obviously, it's that trope of being able to live the same day over and over again. What would you do differently? What would you change? So here's some character designs for her. As you can see, this is basically where she started. Some other ideas that Mike had here for her. She has ponytails here and here. Then she has short hair here. And then a couple of others ideas here. Okay, where she has like more like a samurai-ish outfit, then more like an espionage. It looks like they kind of settled on this look here with the ponytail, as you can see on the cover. And it looks like from here, let me see, Mike Mann said, okay, this new version of the plot felt more organic to me. Does it work better for you? It does, and we're also trying to decide if the key time to travel seen in her first story would take her to ancient Greece or medieval Japan, and it looks like they settled on Japan. All right, so because of me, ancient Japan and samurai are going to be more fun to draw. I'm probably going to agree with that. I think ancient Greece would be fine too, but yeah, I think he's right on that. I think, the fact that samurais, it's sword, it's got the medieval thing that's kind of violent, it would be more fun to draw. So it says here, I went through step by step reading the plot and wrote down Heather's key motivations, the fact that she's trying to find her father who invented this time vest that she wears, and he's lost in time. Okay, so that's interesting, right? I'm assuming this is her father right here. Okay, so that's a neat concept. Okay, so the father's lost in time. She's trying to find him. And let's see, we see some more information down here. Danny Fringo said, yeah, from the Time Machine to the Terminator to Back to the Future, just about any time travel story, I think you have to establish the rules of time and figure the audience will be willing to go along for the ride as long as the story points are compelling enough to make them want to. Otherwise, you go into territory where you're trying to so hard to explain how and why of some things that's possible in the first place that you end up sabotaging your story. Let's face it. What do people remember about Back to the Future? The time-traveling DeLorean and the fact that Michael J. Fox had to make sure his parents got together so that he would be born, which, when you think about it, he must already have succeeded, or else how would we be watching a movie about his character in the first place? But you don't think about that as you watch the movie. You just take the filmmakers and characters' word for it as they are trying to achieve the MacGuffin, as Hitchcock called it. It is important. So yeah, so very key. It looks like they settled on, you know, the main premise, the thing that you would always remember. And yeah, this is true. You always remember that DeLorean about Back to the Future. And so it looks like this time travel device that they developed here is going to be the key point. Here's some more sketches, some more studies of this character Heather, as you can see here. Here they're talking about the setup and the main thing. Then Mike says here, basically the main thing for me as an artist working on the story with you is to figure out logical parameters within this fantasy construct. So if this person can travel through time, they can't just simply solve every problem they encounter by just going, oh, well, I'll just dial back before that happened, and ding, problem solved. So there should be some reason that every time they actually go into the time stream, there's a real possibility that if they do something wrong, they could screw up the present. I think that would be a good thing to have it set up at the beginning, that there's a real consequence for every time Heather jumped through time, right? So good idea, good premise, good thought. There should always be a risk factor in your hero doing heroic things, trying to fix a problem, right? It's like that in real life. So great job here. So it just kind of goes through a little bit more, right? And then down here we see a picture that says, this is my thumbnail breakdown. This is where it all starts. I sketched thumbnails based on Danny's plot. So let me try to, I'll bring that up a little bit closer so you can see that. So that's Mike working on that. And he designed some other characters here. And basically this whole article just kind of talks about the process that he went through. All right, so we're going to look at this here. It's all basic stuff for anyone that's been doing comics for a while, but it's always great to see. I love seeing process stuff, and if you're a process junkie like me, I like to see how things come together. All right, so you get the thumbnail. All right, it says here, this is where it all begins for me visually. So he has the script, okay? He reads it. Whenever I receive a script to work on, like the current Gin and Tonic script that I'm working on, you know, I read it a few times. And just trying to let it ruminate in my mind. You know, what am I trying to accomplish here? What's it that I want it to look like, and that sort of thing. And so I took the time with that and made sure I understood it before I started doing panel layouts, laying out the panels for each page, and then I went in and started doing the sketching. So it's the same process here. All right, he reads the script. Page 1, and it says full page splash, ancient Japan. Is there a famous building, whatever associated with it? I said, if we're using a mask, that should be the focus of the splash. A big, impressive mask reaching out where she's reaching for it with a glove mask. So this is the original kind of like a rough layout that he had done in marker, and he was kind of like, if you look here, all right, he has her pointing or grabbing into the page, okay, and he did some little sketches here of the mask of what he was trying to do. and then he did another study just underneath it there, right? And it looks like this is what he went with here initially, okay? So he did several different openings, okay? So this is his setup, all right, where he's establishing the location, all right, and then these are the actions. He did the same thing here. It looks like he changed it up a little bit, all right, and then as he was going on, all right, he decided, well, maybe I don't like that so much. So in this one here, it's like a medium shot where she's grabbing, and then this one, he does like a close-up of the hand grabbing the mask, and then he doesn't, seems like he doesn't like that, all right, and then he goes and he does a different layout here right underneath it, and it seems like he did like that. So he was like, okay, this is something I can get behind, and then he does the finished pencil on it. And I'll be honest with you, from here to here, this is probably the way it should have been drawn. He does a beautiful job of setting this up. The establishing shot right there, you know where you're at. There's an ominous feel to it, it being all in shadows and dark and at night. So he builds the atmosphere well. We see her, she's inside already. She is, you know, before this shrine. She's reaching for the mask, okay? And then in the third panel, bam, she's got it in her hands, right? So I like this. I like this a lot. I like the way that he transitioned to that. And also the fact that it's these, to me, this is more of a splash page per se. Hugest fan of starting off a splash page with all these. Alright, pardon the hiccup there. So yeah, I really love this. The page breathes more as far as I'm concerned here with these 3 panels versus the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels that he had originally had on there. So it looks like he did some study on these. They're called no masks. They're very authentic looking. Just one of the things that if we're doing comics and we're doing something like period specific, like something like a comic like this, you know, where it's time travel, right? You don't just want to wing it, all right? Things in this world, since it's historical, have already been created. They have a look that has been around, and so as artists, we need to find a reference to these, which Mike did, and he did a good job in portraying that and putting these up on the wall here. Let's see if we can give you a better look there. So yeah, really nice layout here. Nice page, good pencils. I would love to ink that. That is so, I mean, these pencils are so clean. They're so pro level. So yeah, you know, you have Google, you have Yandex, you can find all this information here. So he goes on to write a little bit more here, and apparently he's saying here that they looks like they worked in the Marvel style. So in essence, Danny just basically wrote in, hey, this is what's happening on the page, and then after that's done, then Danny will go in and he will add all the dialogue afterwards. And he talks a little bit about this. He says, in my second pass on the rough layout, I was initially thinking more cinematically, slowly moving into the ninja castle and into an inner chamber to the thief time jumps into. The idea was to slowly build up to reveal the reveal of her, the main character. All right. And since I have been doing storyboards a lot in the last 8+ years on shows like Batman, Superman, Samurai Jack, and Fairly Odd Parents, This has really reinforced and honed my cinematic storytelling skills and the model to tell the story. The problem that he ran into, he says here, in this case, was space, or the lack thereof. Since this is only an 8-page comic, which I will show you the finished product, okay, which I do have it. It came as part of this book, which I think is pretty awesome. It's got to be some kind of collector's item. I don't even know what this thing is worth, if anything, but it's just a neat thing to have. All right, in either event, he said he ran into the problem because it was only an 8-page story and he had to try to tell this tale in the quickest way and most efficient way possible. So he didn't have a lot of space to let it breathe out, so he had to try to use the least amount of images with the most impact in order to be able to speak to what was happening in this story. So he needs, it says here, especially when I need to get some nice action scenes in there in the room as well. In figure D, which is here, all right, this is a new rough that he did for the splash page, which was quickly drawn on a post-it note, and then final type pencils, which we see are E. This, along with the final layout, is the most important on a job. This is the visual foundation for everything else that will hang, for me, the most creative part of the job. Penciling a nice figure or a page and inking are always very creative procedures themselves, but a poor beginning and a bad line, confusing storytelling will not be overcome by the best rendering. Comics are meant to be read as a narrative, not as a series of cool drawings next to each other. Right? Am I right? Is he right? I believe so. All right. I think in the 90s, we had that. You know, we had really cool images, really awesome stuff, image, all that. You know, that was great. It was blowing up. Everyone wanted to see it. But when you look at it with the lens, you know, 30 plus years later, you kind of say to yourself, yeah, but those stories were lacking. The narrative wasn't there. It was just like a series of pretty pictures, you know, and you didn't always get the great stories. And it didn't matter how awesome the artist was. I mean, you had Mark Silvestri, Jim Lee, Eric Carson, you know, just David Finch, Michael Turner, all these guys were all doing great stuff. But if the story wasn't there, it didn't matter. It just really did not matter. And so on this page, we're going to see these are the inks that that were done for this. And if you look here, you can see a picture of Mike inking this, and he's using a Hunt 102. Now we use digital in Clip Studio. So here's some more roughs and layouts and kind of like what he did and some of the changes that he made, things that he tightened up, especially like if you look at this bottom panel. Okay, you see the warrior here facing out, and in the final pencil, he's got him facing in, okay, which is better, and it's a close-up. You get to see him. There's more of an impact on that, it's cropped in closer, so you know that there's a lot of action going on. There's enough background there to kind of like help you understand where you're at. So that's a fantastic job as well. And then once again, we see some of the inked pages here. Man, this is really good stuff. So he has these out here, but then he talks about like the penciling, all right? He says that he takes his layouts and blows them up 130% on 11 by 17 paper. So that's how he was working. He was working small and then blowing up, all right? Then he takes that copy to his light table and he puts on a sheet of 2-ply Bristol and he shoots it up in a light box, and then he does his tight pencils on that. Now, you know, in 2024, 20 years later, there are comic artists that do the pencils digitally, and then they print a blue line out and then they ink that. Or you have some that do rough pencils or not super tight pencils traditionally, and then they will scan it and then they'll ink digitally. All right, so it's a whole different workup, but it says here that he used Strathmore 500 series plate finish smooth surface for penciling. Fantastic paper, but it's, wow, is it expensive. But you know what? It created really nice pencils, so can't fault him for that. All right, you see some more of the layouts that he did here. This page is interesting. It looks like he's got a dinosaur on it. Page 3. And I like the fact that he did many different iterations. And once again, he's working from a Marvel-style script. So the panels are not defined for him. Many of today's scripts, the writers say, hey, there's 6 panels, panel 1, panel 2, panel 3. Next page, panel 4 panels. Next one's a splash page. Next one's got 7 panels. And the artist penciler has to try to fit that in within those 7 pages. And as you can see, this is something that he was struggling with as well. Like how many pages, how many panels do I put on the page? I mean, like this first one had, gosh, what does it look like? That's 4 there, 10. This one had 10 panels. So you can imagine how tight that must have been. And then he did like this big old, splash page. But he couldn't obviously do that, right? Because he would add an extra page. So it looks like he was trying to do that, maybe throw all the panels around it. Here's another layout that he did with the dinosaur. And it doesn't look like he was really happy with any of these here. And he looks like he started to figure it out here. You see the dinosaur, which is cool. All right, dinosaurs are just cool altogether, right? Nice image of her flying in. You get to see the dinosaur. You get to see her here. She's in the swampy water. She's coming up. There's the dinosaur. She's like, oh my gosh, what the heck is going on? I got to get away from this dinosaur. And then this is the final pencil page here. Once again, just really just spot on work. Beautiful, really nice looking dinosaur here. Beautiful penciling. This would be so much fun to ink. Here's another layout. It looks like he was starting to get really comfortable here. He knew what he was trying to say, and he just kind of looks like he nailed it pretty well right on that. And that happens, all right? You kind of sometimes when you do a layout, you nail it right away, and you say, yep, this is where I'm going with. And then other times, you have to redraw it several times, right? More pencils here. More of the layouts. The final pages. It's always changing, right? It's always you're always adapting, always trying to improve it. Trying to get that final look right. But here's the final pencils on that. Okay, and then it says it's continued on page 67, right? So let's go over, turn to page 67. Page 67. All right. Once again, we see all the different layouts that he went through trying to figure out this page. Started to tighten it up here. Looks like he changed ever so slightly what his final page was going to look like, but that's a super page right there. And then this is page 7, final page. And once again, minor differences, minor changes. Just like this is her dad right here, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is her dad. Cool concept there. And then he goes on to talk about the inking, the tools. And, I'll be honest with you, as a person that inks, it's amazing that in comics, the tools basically have not changed much, right? In here, he's got a rapidograph, Rotring pen. We use those Sakura pens, all right, brush pens and that sort of thing. He's the same old Sable or Raphael brush, Micron pens, and a Pro. That's all you need to ink comics, right? And he just talks about the process here. What he uses, lining out the borders, the different tools that he uses for each part. how he uses the brush to fill in the dark areas here. And then he talks about, you know, textures on the trees and that sort of thing. Like the way he inked these masks nice and loose, but also still gives all the information and detail. And then, you know, the computer coloring. And look at this. And oh, I don't even know what version of Photoshop this was. Let me see if it says anything in the article here. He saves it at 300 dpi grayscale. He has a Microtech 9600 XL, and he has an OS 9, OS 10 Mac. Wow. So yeah, so he puts it in there, and he says here, so let's see here. He converts the image to CMYK under image mode on the menu. CMYK is the way all 4 color art is separated for printing. It says, now I'm ready to start coloring, since every color in the 4 color printing process is a mixture of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. All right, so that's for, what do they call that? Off press, inking, offset inking, offset printing rather, I'm sorry, offset printing. Now it's done on computers, digitally printed. Saves a lot of time, and you don't necessarily need to go see MYK. Some people print right from RGB files. Says here that he goes through the page using the paint bucket until he fills in the big basic colors, and he says this is like blocking it in. And then when he's satisfied with the blocking stage, he starts going and adding details of the color, adding some shadows to the form, that sort of thing. I think he's doing this all with a mouse too. Let me see. I use a weight count tab and a stylus to color the page. All right, so maybe it was a little bit more advanced. He has a 9x12 tablet to do that. And that's it. Then he brings it over to the letterer. It gets lettered. Digitally, I would assume. Yeah, it gets lettered digitally, and done in Illustrator. It's still done in Illustrator now, but if you have like Clip Studio, you can letter the comics right there with balloons and caption boxes and all that. I always get a kick out where it says translated from Japanese, like they're talking English, then they put the little asterisk and it says translated from Japanese, but you don't actually see the Japanese. All you ever see is the English words. I kind of miss that. It's kind of neat. You don't really see that in comics too much anymore. And just a little bit about how the pages were lettered in the final look. And then to get them ready for printing, he uses Quark. I don't really even know what that is, but it's a publishing tool like Microsoft Publisher or something, and that's how you get it ready. So let me show you what the final product was, and this is it. All right, this is the finished script, to layouts, to pencils, to inks, to colors, to letters of Thief of Time. You know, I'm looking at this, and as I'm looking at it, I like the way it looks, you know. It holds up like 20 years later. This still holds up. Yeah, I mean, it's nice, right? It looks good. What a great tutorial. So yeah, Thief of Time. So Draw Magazine, you know, there's other articles in here, but the main thing was the how to make a comic. Here's that article on Noel Sickles. I don't know too much about this Noel Sickles guy. I mean, obviously he's more of a old school illustrator that did comics work. Let me cover that before I get a strike on YouTube. But I mean, you know, just in the vein of you know, Robert Fawcett and those kind of guys that did illustration work back in the day. And this stuff is beautiful. And then, you know, cartooning. I mean, all of this stuff was, I mean, you can learn so much from it, you know. They don't, you know, you can find these things on YouTube, you know, everyone's got YouTube videos and tutorials, which I'm thankful. But for something 20 years ago, to have a book like this available that you could reference, put it in your hands and, you know, flip through it, it was really a big deal. Look at some of these. I remember Al Rio. Yeah, good artist. We lost him young. He was a great artist, though. Here's an advertising on how to, you can earn $100 drawing caricatures. And it's 2024 and it's still about the same rate. Here's some recommends, okay. Here's The Female Nude, all right, is a book he recommends. The Art of Silver. This is with Steven Silver. I think he has a YouTube channel too. Maybe I'll put a link onto that as well. Advertising for the next issue of Draw. You can buy original Romita art. I'm just trying to get that art now. Scott Kurtz on cartooning. Here's some pictures from looks like a summer vacation with Draw. Some books in the Tomorrow's publishing line that they were putting out. They had some other books, Alter Ego. I remember picking up some of those. Comic book artists, I have some of these, and we're going to be reviewing some of these on my channel. So yeah, this video is pretty long. It's probably a little bit longer than I intended it to be, but yeah, this is Draw Magazine. I have more of these. All right, this is the first one here, but I just think that, man, what a great book, and I'm glad that I stumbled across these when I was cleaning my studio and redesigning it. Yeah, a lot to learn here. Really appreciate Mike Manley. He's really awesome. Yeah, like I said, check out the Pencil to Pencil YouTube channel. Obviously, you know, subscribe to mine, The Art of Caesar. I'm sorry, El Guapo Comics, and hit notifications, and hit a like on this video. Even, you know, spread the word, share it. I'd appreciate that. You could also hit me up on my Instagram and Threads at The Art of Caesar Feliciano. And yeah, so I want to thank everyone for joining me tonight as we went down memory lane here and Draw Magazine from fall of 2004. Everyone have an awesome night. I gotta go draw this. Peace out.